my dark world. You are the fire that will always burn. You are the light. You are the light. You are the light in my dark world. Oh, how you shine in my time of darkness. Oh, how you shine when everything looks hopeless. You know how to help me when I can't stand on my own. No, don't let go now. You are the light in my dark world. You are the fire that will always burn. You are the light. You are the light. You are the light in my dark world. Oh, how you shine in my time of indecision. Oh, how you shine, give this blind man some vision. You know how to help me when I can't stand on my own. No, don't let go now. You are the light in my dark world. You are the fire that will always burn. You are the light. You are the light. You are the light in my dark world.
Bravo.
Beautiful.
That's gorgeous.
Thank you.
I love that song.
The Holy Brothers in my front room.
Once upon a time, you used to be mine. Birds and bees and apples and trees, the world's a perfect design. Do it all so well and you know it. Let your light shine and know you show it. Mercy, joy, and success. Every day's a chance for happiness. Yes, we can live a beautiful, crazy plan. Every day's a celebration. Every day's a celebration.
I say you match the phrasing so perfectly. Is that
Yeah.
is that from a lot of rehearsal? Is that how you get there?
It's just like we were saying before. It's just instinctive. It becomes like a, I don't know.
He just reads me.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this intuitiveness. I think that that's where the spirituality comes in between us or just in between people. You know, there's some people that if you have the song, then you can do a very minimal presentation of it. And so, you know, we work on the vocals, arrangements, and, you know, and so for me, we've talked about this, that sometimes singing together with Willie, it feels like the Holy Brothers are another entity, and we just have, I feel I'm just part of it, and I experience kind of an otherness of it, you know, like this other entity emerges when the two of us sing.
That's a beautiful thing. It's greater when you're
Yes.
participating in the unity of the two of you and what you're creating, as
Yeah.
opposed to individual egos or you
Yeah.
know.
The usual music
Yeah.
business way, where you just beat each other up.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of that, you know. The other week I picked up a unreleased Leuven Brothers recordings, and they were like predecessors to the Everleys, or predecessors to John Paul, and you know, list goes on of great duos, and you know, they touched upon that every time. It'd be like this two-part harmony. It just had like a magical ring, like a bell. You just feel these two voices that merge inside a bell. You know, it's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
longer two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was definitely thinking about that. Anytime I hear you guys, especially live, that certain two voices, certain duets have that, where
Yeah.
they don't need more than two voices.
Right.
There's just this great richness, and I don't even know what causes that. Part of it is the two voices and the harmony part, of course, but you guys have that, and
I appreciate
it's
that.
very powerful to hear
Yeah,
that.
he reads me. There are times actually that we'll be playing, and you know, it's like, oh, you can't follow this, you know. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, you know. It's like I'll try to just throw myself a little bit off course just to keep myself, you know, like alive and in the moment, you know. But he's just like right there, like, whoa, okay. And then I kind of get lost in the experience.
Right there with the harmony, you mean?
Yeah,
Oh,
right,
yeah.
right, yeah.
I think that comes from, you know, the history that we have too.
Yeah.
I mean, we've known each other for over 40 years.
Yeah.
Long time.
I'll tell you how that whole thing transpired. But I think that it's almost like what you alluded to earlier about the purity of the two voices, because the songs are so strong. When Marvin comes in with something, you know, I no longer have any inclination or desire to over embellish it. It's almost like it provides room for almost like a third voice, that third entity that you fill in with the listener fills it in, as opposed to, you know, we're going to gift wrap every sonic texture for you, and we're going to oversaturate it, which is kind of what's been happening, I think, in music for a long time. And it's not like a nostalgia thing. We're just trying to, I think, as a value system, declare this is us, and this is kind of like the most real, natural way that we know how to deliver it. And it's not a conscious thing, it just is.
Yeah.
You know?
It's an experience, you know, and then all of a sudden we'll look at each other, whoa, what just happened there? You know, it could be a rehearsal, it could be in the studio, it could be a gig. It's almost like the hands don't need to talk to each other, they just kind of know each other.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It just feels like that.
Yeah.
It's really kind of it's a very, very rare thing.
It is. I mean,
You know, to be a part of.
and you can't
know.
fake it. You know, it's a real
No,
thing.
you
here.
can't. You can't fake it because it's not just the notes, and it's not just the chords, and it's not just the song. You know, it's something bigger than all those other
Yeah.
elements. And to kind of even be considered to be here with you guys, because you know, we have just so much respect for you guys.
Absolutely.
And, you know, so it's the kid I call me. You won't believe it. You know, they want us to come by and do this. You know.
It is kind of a huge deal in the life of any songwriter to get to do this
You know,
show.
so
Yeah.
Adding the Grammys probably.
The Grammys and getting paid are the three
Let's not
major.
get carried
Oh,
away.
yeah.
But of course, it does start, of course, with really well-written songs. You know, something not everyone understands. It seems obvious, but your songs are so beautifully crafted and constructed, and great melodies.
Oh, thank you.
That without that, of course, it wouldn't be the same.
Well, you know, Willie's able to, the way that we built it is like, he's got to feel something about it, and when he does, then he goes, let's go with that one.
It's
And-
true. I mean, anytime Marvin, you know, will send me an idea, the immediate criterion that I have in my head is, can I sing to it? So he'll send me an idea on a, you know, that he does it at home, and I'll write back to him, I can sing to this, you know, and then we do it. Pretty
Yeah.
much that's kind of and it doesn't. It's not to minimize the value of any of the other songs that he writes, but that's sort of the criterion for me to go, this is a Holy Brothers song.
So there are ones that
I kind of vet
did
them.
do that. There are ones that didn't
It's
work.
really
that you-
fascinating.
Yeah.
I don't know how, if you guys experience this, but you write a song. I'll say, the first song I wrote in the New York, January 1st, was I Can See Through My Window Now.
Yeah.
All right, I wrote the song, I sent it to Willie, he goes, that's it. And like, whoa, well, why that? You know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden he just connected to that. I could send 10 other songs before, 10 after. I don't know. I like the other ones.
Is it that many?
Just
10
as well.
before and 10 after?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of prolific activity that happens.
It's
Yeah,
You're writing a lot.
a
Yeah, I
lot.
write a lot.
And so when you're writing a song, you're thinking this is the Holy Brothers song?
No, he doesn't use.
No, it's more like I don't get that much sleep because it's like I wake up like hearing a record in my head, and I realize, oh fuck, I don't have that record. It's a song I have to write. So then I have to finish it. So I don't. It's not really a good way to live, really. But it's the only. It's you know, right. You know, so it's like, oh, you know, so you know, so.
Do you mean to say you dream just the melody or you dream a
Oh
whole
no,
song?
the whole. I hear the record.
With the
Yeah,
words
here's
too?
the whole product.
I
It's
won't-
like the whole.
I won't
thing.
start a song unless I know what the title is.
This
So-
is a good problem, I would think. I mean,
Well, I'm
it's,
not.
it's good
I'm
to
not-
sleep
I'm-
too.
Yeah. It's about the. For me, it's about the. Once I have the title, I can. I mean, we did that, right?
Yeah.
So once I hung out with Louise, and we were like, "Oh, that's good." It's like, okay.
Yeah, I was starting to tell Paul that story today. We get our cell phones got
Yeah.
But that's what's the name of that song that the two of you wrote?
Let Me In Again,
Let
Yeah.
Me In Again.
which started off as No One Has Time.
Right.
How did it come together? Because it was quick, I understand.
Yeah, we just were talking, and then, she was kind enough to come over, and I live like, 17-hour drive from here, and we were just talking about the whole concept of, the world with cell phones, we don't communicate to each other, and no one has time, and yeah, okay, hold on a second. So that's how it started, and then we both went to chords, and then all of a sudden it was like, wow, this thing's coming to life.
Yeah.
And then I recorded just me on piano with Jeff.
Jeff that
Peters,
he's
our
referring to is
engineer.
Jeff Peters,
Right.
who was
He's like our third wheel.
totally.
Yeah.
He's been doing he's been the Beach Boys mastering engineer for like the last 40 years and doing
Wow.
live sound for them. He helped design Al Jardine's recording studio up in Big Sur, where Al lives. He just is, it's very rare when you come across a recording engineer that just has such sympathetic ears that it transcends just like skill. Mm-hmm. It's just another thing that you intuit and you go, that guy, that he has the exact same sensibilities.
Well, he gets it. Yeah, so I recorded just a piano vocal. Just
Yeah,
to
you
have,
sent that to me.
And I sent it to Louise, and in the email, on a little CD or email, he says, "Let me in again." I go, okay.
He
You know,
changed
he
the
didn't-
title we had from
Yeah, because
No
I
One
didn't
Has
give him
Time.
the title. I just
Oh.
sang the song.
Right.
I didn't tell him what to record. I said, could you just roll? I want to record something new. And it's working on Louis. He goes, okay. He goes, oh yeah, that's nice, And he goes, let me, so
So that was from him, that message? Let Me In
Yeah.
Again? Oh, I see.
That's
Yeah,
how
the
we did it.
the title, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, okay.
And
Yeah,
it's a
why
nice
not?
turn in the song, too. I
Yeah,
love
right,
that.
right. So I was like,
That's
oh, okay,
interesting.
that's interesting. How someone, so titles can evolve, in songs, But I would say in general, someone was asking me recently about this whole thing with obsession with titles. Like, I can sit down sometimes and write if I don't have a title or if I don't have music. Sometimes I'll just need to write something. It could be poetic or just something I need to kind of, express in writing,
Mm-hmm.
But it's really once I hear the title,
Mm-hmm.
then the whole thing kind of comes to life. I
Yeah.
can hear the groove, I can kind of hear where it goes. And if I'm really lucky, like if, then what I'm hearing in my head, I can go and I go, oh, I'm hearing that, and I hit a C. Oh, that's the chord I'm hearing in my head.
Mm.
Then it's like, okay, now I can really get into it.
Yeah.
Because if you hit the wrong chord that I'm hearing in my head, it really throws me off. It's like, whoa, You know, it's,
Yeah, I'm that way too. I love to work from titles. Some people
Yeah.
consider that like a Nashville or kind of hacking.
that's not Nashville. That's Lennon.
That's popular
McCartney.
song.
That-
Irving
that's like
Berlin,
the-
you know?
to me,
Yeah,
that's
right,
where-
right.
I
God
don't
Bless
know-
America. Key
That's right.
line of that song, right?
That's right.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Or you know,
But
Zevon
Guthrie,
was always writing.
Guthrie rewrote it.
Right.
Right. Yeah, this
God,
was your line.
originally, God blessed America for us because he felt
Right.
America was already blessed. We didn't have to ask. him.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But
So
then he was
tense-
crafty too. He changed it to "This Land Is Your Land."
Right.
That was a good move too.
That was really a good move, and it was that he was like one of the great protest writers, but he was a really legitimate songwriter, and he was very talented. He was very title driven and chorus driven. You know, so anybody in the world can sing that song. You know,
Exactly.
and they were. I think that he represented what was to come.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of Dylan and Lennon and Donovan and a lot of other songwriters.
Yeah, Tom Petty. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
Tom
yeah.
Petty is very much like Woody Guthrie.
Springsteen, yeah.
Popular.
Yeah.
So he Hank Williams, they're all from this, there's a particular way that they wrote a song, and sometimes the songs were not "This Land Is Your Land." You know, sometimes like you just had to listen to the story, and it took on a different meaning. You know, they can't. You know, I remember there was an interview with Lou Reed, and he talked about someone had asked him, "Oh, you got another Walk on the Wild Side?" He goes, "If I had one, I'd record it." You know, it's like that. I got 300 songs to choose from, and everybody keeps coming back to that. You know, there's
Right.
why that one?
Yeah. But
You
that
know?
song, like so many famous songs, the title is the main hook of
title,
it. And
well, in
it's
that
a short
case, it was
form
taken-
and simplicity where the whole thing's anchored on a title.
Well,
that works.
Well, there are two things. One, it was a great title, it was a movie,
Right.
but Brian Wilson had a great quote where he said, "People listen to records. Our generation, you know, it's not like in the 1800s where we're just listening to songs on the porch and they're getting transferred from generation on."
Through sheet music.
Yeah, through sheet music.
That was what gauged record sales.
Right.
What
That's
gauged
how it
song
started. That
sales.
was the beginning of publishing.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
But
And everyone had pianos and would sing all the songs.
that's right. But now you listen to a record and you hear the sophistication of the production of a Walk on the Wild Side. It's not just Lou Reed playing it on a guitar, and that song is good enough to just play on an acoustic guitar or even a stand-up bass alone. You know,
Mhm.
but there's a power to the making of the record, which is another side of where things, the development of technology in record making and the difference. Woody Guthrie never went there.
Right.
Dylan did.
Yeah.
Lennon did. Petty did. You know, Springsteen. You know, a lot of the songwriters in the last 50 years. Technology hit and they took advantage of it.
Paul
And
Simon certainly
Paul
did too.
Simon
Yeah.
did. You know, Simon and Garfunkel. I think Simon and Garfunkel, for me, when I think of the Holy Brothers, I'm not saying I'm Paul Simon, but that to me is our model.
Mm.
Yeah,
You know?
Bookends was I think for both of us, a pretty formative record, not just in terms of an album, but in terms of like a template for, you know, there's some of those kind of spiritual things. There's some irreverence there. There's a lot of soul, and you know, I think we always kind of like when we started doing the Holy Brothers, that was kind of our benchmark. Is would this be good enough to fit on Bookends?
Yeah, and it
I
wasn't-
was just listening to Bookends. That is such a wonderful
perfect album.
song.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Why is it that as great as Paul Simon's songs were after the duo, they never sounded like Simon and Garfunkel?
Yeah.
Well,
They-
Yeah.
it-
you know, he hates nothing worse than hearing
Of
that.
course.
You agree.
Of course.
I
But my-
would tell
my
them that
theory-
Yeah,
in
of course.
person. You know what
Sure.
I mean? I would
And
sit down with them.
he wouldn't be happy to
Well,
hear it.
here's
Yeah.
the thing. There
Yeah.
is this other element. Sometimes,
They had that otherness.
well,
Very much so.
I'm going to bring up a different way that manifests. Sometimes I will write with someone. Someone comes over. They don't have the experience I have songwriting. They're in the room.
Yeah.
You're talking to them and you say, "Oh, so what are you thinking today?" And then this song kind of comes out. I've had that happen where someone's in the room, you know, what they've contributed is their energy and their
Yeah,
presence and
that's
maybe 10% of
Yeah.
the
labor.
labor.
And, you know.
And I think that there is some kind of unstable element
Mhm.
out of which to create something new, which when we're sitting around on our own, no matter how much we try, we're in a room full of mirrors. You know, we're living with our
For sure.
self-doubt.
Good song title, Room Full of Mirrors. Have you heard that?
I hear a lot of guitar on it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm right away thinking terrors, I think of the setup line right away.
But I'm saying there's this element of just not having it be about yourself.
Well, okay, right. So this is a great thing that you're saying. You know, we both have other things that we do in music. You know, Marvin writes songs with other people. I work with other people. I compose music for film and television, and I write children's songs. I have a whole other.
And you perform.
Yeah. Yes.
You're a cancer, isn't that correct?
Retired, but that's another conversation.
That's what he thinks.
But the thing that happens when we get together, you know, and we always say this to each other almost like as a joke. It's like, if you want this, you have to come here to get it. I just don't know of any other place you can go or any other people to go to hear what we're doing is pretty unique. So like if you want that, you've got to come to see us to do it, and that's kind of what we bring to the table every time we get together. It's an utterly unique thing that transcends in a weird way anything else that we do separately. It doesn't diminish the value of the other things, but there's a certain, like you said, a spiritual thing that happens when we get together where it's just the two of us, and there's no need to augment it with like big orchestration, with a third voice, with 3-part harmony, with loud electric guitars and stuff. You can do that in the studio when you're crafting something, but in terms of like keeping the integrity of the sonic texture that the two of us and just the two of us have, I think that's part of what makes the Holy Brothers, I think, a unique and special entity.
I think it was nice you mentioned Simon and Garfunkel, because it's similar in that Simon was writing the songs, but Garfunkel came up with really creative, beautiful harmonies.
I don't understand.
And their voices together.
Right.
Yes.
So my answer to that would be, doesn't sound as good because the harmony, you can't beat harmony. As great as a song is, if you have great harmony.
Yeah, but he's had harmony singers on his records.
Not like that, though.
I understand that, but I'm saying there's something about the two of them getting together.
That's what's
They've
missing.
been working together since the 50s, Tom and Jerry, then when Simon and Garfunkel. And I can't explain it. Nobody can explain. It's like as soon as he went solo, it was like, it didn't have that. It didn't have that Simon and Garfunkel thing, and it was something about, he was, as far as I was concerned, that's an irreplaceable duo. He didn't go, okay, well, it's Simon and so that came, let me do another duo,
Sure.
and all I need is somebody doing the heart. It wasn't about that. It was like something about the two of them. There are certain times when you get two people in a room, like you were saying, it's not about anything, it's just something happens. And, you know, when Willie said, yeah, we've known each other for 40 years, it's like, there's some very, very deep stuff in the rivers of our friendship. You know what I mean? And, you know, there are people after we play that come up to me and goes, well, you are brothers, so I just wanted to talk to you about that. And I go, well, yes, but not literally.
You guys want to know how we met?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a really cool and interesting story. In 1978, I was 15, and I was going to Fairfax High School in what's, I guess, now considered West Hollywood? Hollywood, I guess?
Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah, Hollywood.
Well, across the street from Fairfax High School on Melrose was the original Aron's Records.
I remember it.
That was the place where I pretty much got as much education as I got from Fairfax High School was like minuscule compared to the musical education I got from cutting class, running across the street with my friend Dave Sawyers, who I've also known for about 40 years, funnily enough. We'd cut class, we'd go across the street, or, you know, if we were good kids, we'd go during our lunch break, go across the street, go to Aron's Records, and buy records. And we amassed, you know, I amassed a good chunk of what I still value. Like I got my first John Coltrane, A Love Supreme, I bought from there. Astra Weeks, I bought there.
Serious stuff.
Creedence,
LPs.
LPs. 1978. I was 15. I was already. I was raised as a classical, piano kind of prodigy. I was winning competitions when I was a little kid and stuff. But then I heard, and I didn't really hear much rock growing up. But somewhere along 1976, when I was 13, I started like gluing my ear to the radio, and then I started buying records, and I started going, oh, like of course the Beatles were the thing that sort of tipped everything over. And in my high school, they weren't like super hip. To be like a Beatle fan, at Fairfax High, in the middle of like, progressive rock and Kiss and metal and punk rock is coming, and I'm into like, I love punk rock, but like when the Beatles, Buffalo Springfield, Dylan, Motown, the Kinks, all this stuff was, like almost like the dying embers of the generation before me. That's what I got into. I kind of rejected all the other contemporaneous stuff. Well, as it turns out, we're going to this. We're shopping. Dave and I are shopping for records, and the Who Live at Leeds is playing, right? And you could hear the bell. The school bell ring from the store. 1 o'clock ring. There, and Dave goes, "We've got to go. We've got to go back to class." I go, "We're in the middle of my generation. We can't go yet." And I hear this voice saying, "There's a guy who likes good records." And I turn around, and it's Marvin, who's a clerk at Aron's. And from that point on, we just started talking music. I was younger, but we had. It's almost like we had the same musical values, and from that point on, and Marvin was in a band called The Model that I had played at Fairfax earlier that year, and I remember seeing them at the Quad at Fairfax. But
did you go to Fairfax?
He
I
did.
went to Fairfax
So
before.
you and I figured we have some kind of Hollywood public school.
Yeah,
Like we knew each other, but we didn't know each other.
correct. Where did you go to? You didn't go to.
I didn't go to Fairfax, but I would have gone to Fairfax.
Oh.
I
That's so interesting.
I ended up going to Uni High for 1 year, which was nowhere in my neighborhood,
Right.
because they had an alternative program, which was as hippy dippy as you could get, and it was in the 70s.
Oh,
But you
yeah.
and I, it was Bancroft or something.
I was Bancroft.
You went to Bancroft Junior High.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we both went there.
I was president of Bancroft Junior High.
Okay. We both were
I
in
was
Bancroft.
president of my junior high.
It's
Yeah.
that story.
So like then Marvin started inviting me over to to his place, and we just started. He goes, "Hey, I've got this song I'm working on," and he played me a song, and I immediately started singing harmony to it. And
Had you already been singing harmony with others?
yeah, but Marvin was just such a formative influence. When there was like a great record at the store, he'd go, "I'm putting this aside for you," like the complete Buddy Holly. It was a 6 LP.
You were schooling.
Box, and he goes, he called me, it was Willie, I'm putting aside the complete Buddy Holly for you.
I changed the price on
I changed the price on stuff.
That's a match there.
Totally. And, but like, I mean, and then he'd be the first guy to go, "You got to come over to hear this band, Television. They have an album called Marquee Moon. It's going to blow you away." I'd go to his house, he'd play the record, I'd be dumbfounded for like 2 weeks. When, I don't know, the Jam or the Clash or something had like a 7-inch, you go, "You got to hear this," So it was a very, like I said, a very formative introduction to music that completely kind of upended the stuff that I was already used to, which was like 60s and 50s, rock and roll, which I had kind of gravitated to naturally. And then from there, I just became kind of musically omnivorous. I just sort of soaked up everything that I could. So I got really into jazz and black music and blues and R&B, but especially jazz, like Coltrane, Miles Davis, Charlie Mingus, Charlie Parker, stuff like that. That very few kids. I think I might have been the only kid at Fairfax who had any kind of like had any kind of deep abiding interest in that music.
Did you continue the classical piano?
No, I kind of stopped. Once then I taught myself how to play guitar. I played in rock bands, and the whole kind of thing that was happening in Hollywood in the late 70s, I just kind of got swept up in it. There were all these bands that were playing, and I'd go to see them. If some great British band was playing, like up at the Roxy, like the Clash came to town, I'd go to see them. If the Jam came to town, I'd go to see them. If the Buzzcocks, all that stuff, But at the same time, that movement, I kind of sort of saw through the what I found to be a very kind of limiting viewpoint too. So like there were friends of ours that if you liked punk rock, you automatically had to hate music that came before it. Mm-hmm. And I was never I like, you know, buying the Clash didn't make me want to like burn my Beach Boys records.
Right.
Yeah, they had Bo Diddley like tour with them, and they kind of had a sense of history.
Yeah, good songwriters. Too.
Great songwriters, and so like that thing, the sense of history was the thing that always was what always compelled me about music. You know, so for me, I always try to see a through line, and you know, Marvin and I both loving the Beatles as much as we did and still do. It became so when I buy this Buddy Holly box set, I go, aha, that's where the production tricks came from, the double tracking of the voices, and it just became like this idea that like music comes from someplace. It isn't just hatched in a vacuum or out of thin air. That there is a precedent.
Mm-hmm. And
you know,
I got into Holly because I got Blind Faith.
Oh, Well, All Right is on that
and
album, right?
I heard the album.
Right.
And I go, that's a good song. And I heard Well, All Right. Who wrote that? Why is that song so much better than the rest of the album?
Yeah.
And I was like, Buddy Holly. And I was like, Buddy Holly?
Yeah,
Okay,
that
I know
connects.
of them, but I never got into them.
That connects with you, Sonny
Oh,
Chris.
I did an interview with Sonny West, who wrote Rave On and Oh Boy, and
And so many people were influenced by Buddy Holly. I mean, the Beatles said all their songs, a lot were in E major because he wrote in E major.
Right.
And Tom Petty too said, you know, he had so few chords, but he did them every possible way you could put those chords.
Yeah,
It was
sometimes you
genius.
mention that there's certain iconic songs, and sometimes I work on something, it's like, not intentionally, but just maybe, you know, like maybe subconscious or something, okay, you know, Well, Ride, you know, like, Ticket to Ride's an A, or Crossing Over, that's an D, or okay, Imagine the C, you know, it's okay, I'm looking through, that's a G, you know,
Yeah.
there's certain songs, you know, that just have there's a feel, it's nothing really conscious in the songwriting process, but that's almost like a template
Yeah.
for me, you know.
I think of that too, because, you know, all these decades spent in these various keys, you get feelings for the keys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like certain A minor songs, you know, are just very A
Yeah,
minor.
Working
Yeah, it's
Class
true.
Here was the first song I learned on guitar. It was just one chord
Which is what?
from the first John Lennon album.
Yeah, but
So,
what's the chord?
A minor.
It isn't.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know,
Like
it's
Dylan
well,
had some great A
my
minor
friend
songs.
Mike
That's right.
Freese
That's right.
from junior high, he turned me on to Plastic Ono Band. And Marvin, you have got to listen to this record. And it totally changed my life. More than any other record.
Is that right?
Up to
That
point,
one?
yeah, Plastic Ono Band was like, whoa, he's talking about things that like nobody's talking about.
Yeah, like the song God, or I Don't Believe, and you listen to
Yeah.
everything
Right,
he doesn't
and
know.
I'll share a story. So I went to, there's a school you go to, like after the bar mitzvah, you know, like.
The confirmation. class or
Confirmation,
something?
right, so I had this confirmation class, and the teacher said, okay, you can write about anything you want, there's gonna be a term paper that you can write. So I went up to the teacher, I said, well, I wanna call my term paper God. And they're like, well, I guess you can do that, you know, and it's like, we are a temple.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so I wrote this extensive paper about God, you know, and if I quoted anyone, maybe I used to quote, you know, from the Lennon song or wherever. I was reading Elie Wiesel at the time, you know, it was a big influence, and whenever I used to quote, you know, and so the paper went to all of the teachers who worked at the temple, and all of them would circle lines and go, you couldn't have written this. Page after page, you couldn't have written this.
Really?
Yeah, and they gave me like a C or D on the paper.
they accused you of
Because
plagiarizing.
it was so good, they thought he's not this brilliant to have written
Yeah,
it.
there's no way he could have come up with this.
That's a backhanded compliment, really.
I understand that, but at that time,
Right.
you know, being 14 or 15, it really threw me off in terms of, after this, I'm not going back and taking any more classes.
That was a
Did
good
you
choice. I mean, that's bad.
But did you protest that? No, I did, right? And kind of.
I said I did, but they were.
They wouldn't believe it.
They're sort of
No.
dead set in their opinion.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
like you couldn't have done this, and so I kept, you know, the belief to myself in terms of, you know, it was something, you know, I didn't, maybe had they sat me aside, did you write this, or what's going on, what's going on with you, you know what I mean? Like if I write a song and I send you a song, or so Willie said, you didn't write this song. Willie, I just wrote it last night, what do you mean, you know? It was kind of like that, I spent a long time on this, but it was a life-changing event to have something that you worked on be deconstructed like that. So then, when I went into songwriting, it was more personal. It's like, well, no one can touch me.
Mm.
I don't need these people. I don't have to hand my songs into teachers,
Yeah.
for validation. I can just put it in a drawer, and it's like my personal little world. Eventually it became external, but that was life-changing in terms of a writer, because I don't know, maybe I would have gone into studies, religious study, because I was fascinated, with the concept of God at a very young age. When I was like 8 or 9, my grandfather, Willie knows this, my grandfather was a very big influence on me. Gave me my first instrument, which was a mandolin, and gave me my first tape recorder and record collection. First person turned me on to country music, And one time we were in the backyard, they lived next door to us, and I said, it was just the two of us, I said, so what is God? He goes, he's in the sky, he's in the trees, he's in the air, he's everywhere. And I'm like, okay, that was the silence.
And God was a he.
Right.
I think that even if he had said she or it, or just said God is in the trees, it wasn't like a figure. It wasn't like a judgmental being.
God is
over you.
everything.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like, well, God is everywhere. God, he's in the trees. And it was just 4 sentences that really stayed with me my entire life. And I think that there are times that you doubt, something happens in your life, and great intellectual thinkers of our time that can say God doesn't exist. I just know for myself that I've had experiences to prove otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. So I'm not preaching about it. If I hear a song in my head and another person doesn't, does that mean the song isn't in my head? If I have experienced something that's spiritual and that comes from the other side, because I've experienced that, and someone else hasn't, that doesn't mean I didn't experience that, or the other way around.
Right. right.
So that's all I'm saying. So for my grandfather, that's what he brought to me, and he grew up Orthodox and rebelled. He was, he left Poland, came here in America, but I mention it is that the connection when you started talking about, you guys, there's a spiritual side to the music that we have. It's really not on purpose. Some time ago, I have to find the tape for it, but I was working on a song called It's All Written Out, which is a spiritual philosophical debate.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something, I think, powerful to just live with one's own spirituality. And some people don't have that. And I've talked with very good friends who they don't have those experiences, and I'm totally fine with that.
I've had that too. Some very intellectual people, but they can't fathom God. Where to me, I think like you, it seems obvious that there's proof of God everywhere. So that's one of the reasons I love the Holy Brother song so much. If God let go, which is kind of a question. What if God let, just for a few moments, if He were to let go? We would be flung in outer space without gravity, and right away that would wreck everything. But I kind of felt that if people lived without God for a moment, they wouldn't get the message.
Well,
that's why that. I'm not sure if that was the intention of the song, but that's how I took it.
That one came pretty quickly, right? And again, it was a title. I think it was on piano. I played with, whoa, okay, let's record that one,
You said yes to that one, right?
Oh
Yeah, it
man,
was like-
right away.
Yeah.
I would say to Marvin, it's a holy hit. That's my kind of standard answer to him. If he
Yeah.
sends me a song that I like,
Yeah.
that I think is for the Holy Brothers, I'll send him back an email going, it's a holy hit.
And we're looking in terms of like, some kind of chart activity or something like that. It's just like a personal, like,
You connect
it's
to
like
it.
a bang, it's
Yeah.
like a really deep
Yeah.
EP.
Well, that one to me seemed like a classic. I mean, that
Oh, I
melody
appreciate
is
that.
just gorgeous.
Oh.
So that melody came up with the words.
Yeah,
together?
that was a lot of songs come pretty quickly. Willie had introduced me to Leonard Cohen at Temple some years ago, and I talked to Leonard about the songwriting process, and I said, people like Hank Williams and Buddy Holly, from my understanding, or Dylan, they wrote songs pretty quickly. And I said, I really connect to that, like it just can happen. Whoa, we got the song, and I go, he just looked at me, and momentary universe was shifting, like, no. for him, he was coming from as a poet. He was a poet before he was a songwriter.
Right.
And that's where was his center. So he'll write, 20, 30 verses more.
Mm-hmm.
He'll write a book
Yeah.
for a song.
Yeah.
And I said, don't you hear the ending of the record? Like, no. He has to kind of like carve it,
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
like,
I think he wasn't thinking in terms of records.
No,
No.
he kind of
Verses
figures.
and the lines and the
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
words.
He figures in our story a little bit too, because he saw our very first performance.
Ah,
When was that?
Oh my God. Let me think. 15 years ago?
was it that long ago?
Something like
Wow.
that? Or 10 years
where
ago?
was it?
Wow. It was at the rabbi's house.
Oh,
The rabbi that we're talking,
It was like
talking
10
about is
people there.
that is
yeah.
pretty holy. That's
yeah, a
a-
guy named Rabbi Mordecai Finley, who's just a David Mamet calls him the John Coltrane of rabbis.
This is the rabbi
Well, I-
that
I-
Leonard would
Correct.
go-
Yeah,
So the first
I went up to Finley and told him because we would take classes with him. Leonard would be in the class. and
Well,
there'd
yeah,
be like
we
9
studied
people in
every
the
year,
class.
every week for 2 years.
Yeah, we were just studying,
Long classes, right?
2 hours, 3 hours?
Yeah, we just hang out, And after a class, I said, you're like a Miles Davis of rabbis. And he'd look at me and Willie like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like he did, and I said, it's okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah. You should tell the story about right before we went on that first gig.
So, it's Leonard Cohen, and so I went up to him. I said, hey, do you ever? We're about to play, and I'm really nervous. And I didn't want to say I'm nervous because you're here. Do you ever get nervous before playing? He goes, oh yeah, all the time, And I said, well, what do you think I should do right now? And he goes, Marvin, if I was you. And he pointed to, there's like a little section that was like bottles of wine in the house. And he goes, if I was you right now, Marvin, I would consume an entire bottle of red wine before going on. I said, that's a great idea, Leonard. I don't think I'm going to do that, but thanks for the tip.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we remained in touch, but I feel very lucky to just, be able to talk to him about songwriting. And,
Yeah.
but it's...
He was always supportive of
Very,
us.
very
What
supportive.
a beautiful guy.
Yeah,
Oh, the
yeah,
best.
incredible.
I was lucky to get to interview him and get to know him a little bit. And I was thinking of you guys because he had a very holy approach to songwriting. He had a reverence for songwriting.
He sure did.
He said how being a songwriter is like being a Catholic nun in some ways. You're married to a mystery. So he's bringing the holiness to it. But of course, even in so many of his songs like Hallelujah, people even sing him in church, but
Yeah.
they're not all holy. There's a lot of earthiness in
Well, it's funny you
Hallelujah.
mention that because, I wrote You Are the Light, which when I was in Lone Justice, Maria sang, right?
Mhm.
And so Robert Hilburn was interviewing the band,
Mhm.
right? So he called me up and he goes, so I understand you wrote some of the songs for the group. I said, yeah. I said, what song did you write? And I said, one of them was You Are the Light. He goes, well, you didn't write that. I said, well, why do you say that? He goes, well, because you're Jewish and Maria's singing the song.
So it's impossible then, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That's just your childhood
And I'm
coming back
offended.
to haunt you.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was interesting that, to me, the high compliment in that was that he didn't believe me.
Like your teachers.
Right?
similar.
That when another singer takes your song and sings it and makes it so much their own that nobody can actually believe that that person didn't write the song.
Would they say to my dad, you did not write Natural Woman. You could not have written that because
Correct.
you're a man.
And
That's right.
it was like,
Yeah.
whoa, then you've gone to that other place, It happened to me another time where someone had reviewed some songs, a song Weapons of the Spirit, which had a spiritual connotation to it. Other songs in that record, and they did an interview with me for this magazine, and then when I got the magazine, I realized, oh, this is a Christian magazine talking about music, and I said, fine with me, and I called up the person who did the interview with me, and because they said, the Christian songwriter, Marvin, wrote Weapons of the... So I called him up, and I said, hi, I really appreciate the interview, it was really kind. Really appreciate the kind words about my songs. but I just want you to know that I'm not Christian. I said, and he goes, what? I said, I'm Jewish. And there was a silence on the phone. He goes, oh. We're too late to retract this one. You know, at that time, everything was paper.
Right.
There's no internet.
Printed.
You know, it's like, oh, we'll change that. You know what I mean? It's impossible. You know, so, but there's something to that. But if someone sees themselves in what you do, you know, as a listener, he saw himself. It's like, there's nothing really I can do about it. There's nothing I want to do about that. I wasn't trying to do anything about
Well,
that.
people make assumptions all the time.
Right.
And
Sure
do.
Yeah.
We're talking about if God let go, and you know the purity when you guys sing it solo. But
Yeah.
that the record and that whole record,
Yeah.
there's a lot of production. But
Yeah.
the production on that song I really love because it's very sparse, and then it's like the big yellow sun and
Right.
a lot of voices coming.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
Beatles.
Yeah, for
Beautiful.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things of how it hit us at the time of the recording, you know.
How
it's
many
like
voices are on that? I mean, there are many parts.
I
on
think
that,
we
but-
maybe three.
I thought I was going to say triple tracked it maybe.
Yeah.
But I think with the Holy Brothers, I don't think we put, you know, an artificial restraint on it only has to be the two of us. Like we're going to replicate what we do live in the studio every single time. So with that one, we wanted that expanse, you know, at that point. The drummer on that track is James Gatson, who's to me like one of the great drummers of all time and one of the greatest humans of all time. He's just an amazing.
Yeah.
So when he comes in with his, you know, at the towards the tail end of the song, it almost like dictated that
that was an
density.
unspoken
Yeah,
arrangement.
kind of a Ringo.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you know, so that was an unspoken arrangement. And I don't feel that we have to be purists in terms of record making. Okay, it's one mic,
Right.
two voices and a guitar or mandolin, or that's it, you know. We've done that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like Keep Crushing Me is two voices and guitar, we mixed it that day, and then that's probably my favorite track that we'll ever do. It just holds something very dear to me.
Yeah.
But if God let go, it's like, well, you know, there's nothing wrong with when I listen to like just the home recording of like Lennon on a piano or guitar, and then you hear the record. Like I said earlier, like we listen to records.
Yeah.
We're used to the day and age of that. So
And I gotta say, I mean, sometimes you can badly produce a song, but that was the
Well,
perfect thing. And
oh,
it was just
well, why do you
delightful
think
to hear it. And
Yeah.
to me, it just sounded like these guys are in love with records. That's what I got.
For
from-
sure.
Right.
That's
And
you.
it's that
Yeah, you're right
beautiful
about
thing
that.
you can do.
I love records. I'm with you on that.
yeah, there's something. You know, when I was a little boy, my mom, you know, used to tell me like when I was 3, you know, she'd buy me records. And I couldn't read. I'm like 2 or 3 years old, but I'd pick out the records. Oh, that one would be like, I remember the label with the song.
Yeah, yeah.
Before being able to read, you know, and
Yeah, me too. 45.
yeah, 45s, you know, so I loved records. I loved
Me too.
45s. I loved the song. you know.
Right. And what you just said, you know, I love records. I mean, that's what initially brought us together.
Yeah.
If that had not happened, we wouldn't be here, and the last 40 years of our lives would be completely different.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
It was nice to
He
talk-
would have stayed in class.
Because when you sing live, it's so meditative,
Yeah.
And
and
that's
it brought you together was Live at Leeds.
Yeah, I mean, right. The
Yeah, right.
biggest, loudest,
Well,
you know.
it's funny, but you know, at least it's for me, it's like Townsend is a big unifier
Huge,
for us.
definitely.
You know, we're both big.
Huge. Who
you know,
fans,
Townsend
huge.
fan, Who fans,
Yeah.
and we could talk about the Who for like hours.
Me
you
too.
know, like,
Me
you know.
too.
I would have guessed that one, though. That's interesting.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love them, but I didn't
Oh,
want to
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah, that-
In
that-
high school, at Fairfax, I mean, the Beatles were always kind of like something else. Like, you know, but the Who, during that time in my life, particularly, they were like my band. You know, they were, I don't know, I just cherished, you know, the personal touch of Townsend's writing. I just thought was really amazing. I thought their whole kind of almost like orchestral approach, you know, to and everything is kind of like formally wrong. Like they overplay, but they do it together in such a kind of instinctive way. It was just very appealing to
Keith
me.
Moon's the greatest overplayer.
Absolutely, very
And
appealing to me. And as a
drummers
kid,
like him,
yeah,
Right.
that's
you know,
right.
For that, but it was a
Yeah.
band. It was a
For that
band
music,
sound.
for sure.
And there's an example where I think that the power of the song transcends the writer of the song, which is
Yeah.
kind of what we're talking about earlier. We're talking about your dad and Natural Woman, where I would guess that a lot of people thought that Roger Daltrey wrote Teenage Wasteland. How could he not?
Well, that's,
you know,
that's
it's so
usually
believable.
how it's perceived, is who's
Right.
ever singing it, it's their song.
Yeah, there's a real power.
You have to
know,
go out of
to
your
that.
way to credit songwriters these
What's
days.
that?
It's
Yeah,
true.
you have to go out of your way to credit
It's true.
songwriters these days because, you know, in the press and everything that
Yeah.
gets printed, it's always left out.
There's another thing that is a phenomena of our time that's hard for me to connect to. Is I picked up, Jay-Z had a new record out. It was under someone else's name, like a band name. Do you know the record I'm talking about?
I'm not sure, but I think I know where you're going. with
Right.
this. How
Okay.
many people write each song?
And so I'm listening to the record, and maybe Dre is producing, and the production's great, the mastering's great, the grooves are, you know,
Slamming.
beats are great. It's like, wow, that's really great. But I cannot connect to the song. So I'm looking, like, who wrote this song, right? You know, and I'm really, there are almost 30 people who wrote the songs on this album.
Right.
It's like a law firm wrote the song.
Yeah, but it
You know?
feels that way emotionally to me, that it feels like, okay, everything, like, there's not like a current line. You know, there's a great line by Cole Porter, and someone said, what do you think of Rodgers and Hammerstein? And he goes, it takes two grown men to write one song? Yeah.
But back then, he usually did. He was an exception. Of
He
course.
was
But
an
this-
exception.
This modern phenomenon, you know, it's because they're making records. Like
Right, now
Yeah,
it's all
yeah, that's
about
right.
the records.
Bruno
So now
Mars, he
it's-
credited 4 of the guys on one of his songs just because they did the drum beat.
Right,
Yeah, correct.
right.
I mean, they were being generous with the song credit.
That's right,
But it's not the same as where we come from.
right.
Like Bruno Mars talked about writing a song with Babyface, and he says, we did it old school. We went to a piano.
Yeah.
Like it was
Imagine
some novelty, right?
Writing with an instrument, but that's
Right.
generally not what they
Right,
do. They're
yeah, so I,
using loops.
you know,
It doesn't
now,
create
is
some
that,
kind of
is that
song.
the case
Right.
all the time? Absolutely not, but it seems like that's a newer phenomena in the songwriting process. I remember one time meeting with a producer, he goes, I don't know how you do it. He goes, do what? He goes, produce albums. He goes, what do you mean? You're like a big name producer. He goes, oh, I only do singles, you know? And then I write the top line. I go, what line is that? what are you like even talking about?
Yeah,
He goes,
right.
oh yeah, I came up with I hit a cowbell or I hit a couple.
I know why producers do that, though. I know why they just do singles, because doing an entire record feels like babysitting, and you know
Oh,
that
interesting. Interesting.
you know it's a lot of heavy labor, and you know that at least 3/4 of the record that you make won't get heard. So you figure, if I'm going to invest my time,
Yeah.
I'll just invest my time on the one that's going to get promoted, and
Yeah.
it's a time management decision.
Nowadays. I mean, it used to be
Yeah.
that was the art form to create a unified.
Well, it,
Yeah,
it,
right,
it,
right.
evolved. I mean, it was always a singles industry. You know,
Right,
the
it
Beatles,
became
the
that.
Kings,
Sure.
you know, they were signing singles deals. You know, and then it evolved. Okay, you put the single on the album,
Yeah.
and then the advent of the full album was really like, okay, Pepper said, okay, this is the untouchable album.
Mhm.
The album, right? Everything shifted.
It's more than 50 years ago now.
I love albums, but how
Yeah.
do you get people to listen to the entire album?
You know what? I think that I'm not even sure if that's the right question. What's important is that the artist complete what they need to complete. Meaning that, what's the director's name? Kurosawa? Is that how you say his name?
Kurosawa.
Kurosawa. So they asked him, he says, you make these incredible films, they look phenomenal on the big screen, and people are watching them on their phones, on their watches, and he goes, that's not my business. I make the most unbelievable film that I can make, and then after that, I'm out.
You're preaching to the converted with
No,
me.
but I know
mean,
what you're saying. I know what you're
yeah,
saying.
do a
You're
lot of
saying that
albums.
it's a lot of labor
Yeah.
for it. It's almost like why invest the time? And
I'm not saying I come from that.
No, I
I'm just
totally
saying,
agree.
but that's the thinking.
Right, it is.
Yeah.
But
And-
I'm not- okay, go ahead.
Well, as music has evolved, in quotes over the years, the way it's being disseminated, right? It has a different significance, from, like you said, in parlors, in people's living rooms. Everybody played piano. The primary caretaker, if it was the woman, she primarily knew music, was probably teaching piano to not only her kids but the kids in the neighborhood. And sheet music sales were what gauged what was popular. course, then it shifted over to records, and records, came from shellac to to 16 RPM to 78 to the album and the 45 to MP3 and however inelegant the through line I'm trying to say is. What I'm trying to say is that at some point it still has value. However you decide to do it, it's the intent that you put into it. So like if we went in going, we're gonna make, we were gonna plug these 2 songs, that's gonna be our single, and the rest of it we're gonna kind of do whatever the hell we want. Some people do that. Some people go, we're doing singles, and the rest we're just gonna kind of indulge our fantasies. And I think sometimes that comes across as people go, well, those are the only 2 really good songs. And I think the CD format, almost amplified that thing. Like you have this format, you can fill up 80 minutes of music. Doesn't mean that you have necessarily the writing chops or the, sonic chops to make a compelling 80-minute CD. But here's the technology for you. We got to fill this up, right? What I'm saying is, I think the way we're going to approach this next Holy Brothers album is I sent you the single. Mm-hmm. We're going to, I think, record every song for this next album as if it's a single. Just in terms of the impact that it has on the listener.
Whatever that means to us at that particular time.
Right. Doesn't mean 3 minutes catchy, up tempo. It just means whatever is grabbing our attention that we can invest our full effort into.
I understand what you're getting at, but I'm not sure people aren't listening. How do we really know?
Well, we don't, and I've asked 16-year-olds, and they say that when they like a song or an artist, they do get the whole record.
Right, and I remember in the early 90s putting out records, and I was told by the label, vinyl is dead, we're not putting your record out on vinyl.
Right.
So I transferred the album, it was an analog record, like for a solo, the Mandolin Man. Mm-hmm. And I went to the mastering studio, and I transferred it from the quarter-inch master tape to an acetate. Played the acetate into the digital format. It was analog vinyl digital at the time. So that became the CD, because I thought that's the only way. I was so distrustful of the sound at that time.
Right. And the truth is they've intentionally tried to phase out, the CD work so that you could go to iTunes and just get MP3s.
Correct.
And none of those computers come with disk drives.
Right, and cars
Right.
don't.
So,
Right.
yeah.
The new cars.
So I've got
Except.
some of the computers, you get an old car,
But
a friend of ours sent us 2 CDs, one for me and one for my son who's 19, and I gave my son his. And he goes, what am I going to do with that? And I go, just
That's
take it.
not
He
an
goes,
uncommon.
"You won't even I got nowhere to put
A
it."
CD in a car is like $1 million in Cuba. You can't do anything with
But I
it.
love it. But
Yeah.
the hopeful
Right.
part is that it keeps coming around. I mean, there's a huge LP resurgence.
I was just going to say that.
It's not
Exactly
only
right.
the CDs, but that 2 sides. That there's an intermission. That's kind of has a nice quality.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Kids
You
in
got a record player
particular.
right here, like it right there.
Kids
Yeah,
love
they-
it too.
Yeah, I don't
Kids
think
love they love the experience of like, I'm sitting down, I've got this superior audio format. It's going to take me from point A to point B emotionally. But I think that kids, having grown up with kids, I'm not talking about little kids. I'm talking about like maybe like teenagers or people in their 20s who grew up with free everything and MP3s are now going, wow, that totemic thing that my dad or my grandfather had boxes of. It's actually a really cool thing.
Yeah.
It has some artistic merit to
Right.
it.
Yeah, my son discovered my LPs when he was like 7. He's like, "Oh, these are cool. I mean, they're so much bigger and fun to look
Right.
at." I miss those so much because that's
Yeah.
one of the only things we had in our rooms. But they were huge.
Yeah.
I played my younger son Rubber Soul. He was just into the fact that you could speed it up and slow it down. So I'd be around the house and I'd be hearing all the songs going at double time,
Yeah.
and
Right.
then I'd hear them slow down.
Great.
Just the whole mechanical aspect of
There's
it.
something
I like that too.
visceral about it.
Yeah.
But I think that if whatever format you are as an artist in this day and age, that you have to follow that. So there's some filmmakers, that can make. There was a new film out. I'm blanking on the name of it. It was really good. It was just shot on an iPhone.
Mhm.
It looked great. and it was a good, it was a good story. It was well written. It was well acted. It was just shot on a phone. Well, it was Soderbergh's new film,
Yeah.
right? So I'm a fan of his. It's like, to me, I look at albums as like in the same way as films. So if someone is just doing a single, it feels like a filmmaker. I can't imagine Scorsese going, yeah, I did the one scene for the movie, the one that everyone's going to remember. Hey, you looking at me? And then I'm out.
That's a good analogy. Oh, I have a question for you along these same lines. Now because everybody.
You got new glasses?
Huh?
Are those new glasses?
Oh, I've had them a while.
Okay, I like them. Okay.
Thank you. Things have changed so much, and as an indie artist, I like the immediacy of it, and I like the fact that you can do something and put it out. Yet, there's still people who will say, oh, you don't want to put that out in November, it's too close to the holidays, or no, you want to wait till the next Grammy window passes. All these little things that used to exist.
They don't exist.
Right.
None of that really would matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to play that new song?
Oh, yeah.
How you doing?
Okay, yeah.
Again, that-
I'm fine, totally fine with that.
What is the name?
I can see through my window now. Yeah. Oh, you don't have the porch board.
It's okay.
Now that I'm getting.
I can see through my window now. I can see through my window now. Anybody who walks by, anybody who says hi, they can tell. I can see through my window now. Onwards I climb to the ways of love. She was unkind till I woke up. I can see through my window now. I can see through my window now. Anybody who walks by, anybody who says hi, they can tell. I can see through my window now. It's a new day for everyone. Let it rain. I'm not afraid to show my love. Love. I can see through my window now. I can see through my window now. Anybody who walks by, anybody who says hi, they can tell. I can see through my window now. I can see through my window now.
Amazing.
That was like a great Beatles ending with you singing that.
Yeah. All those
That was pretty
chords.
Cool.
Yeah.
Man.
That's so good. So
Thank you.
that's your newest?
Yeah.
That's our, we just recorded the single version,
Yeah.
and so we got into this whole discussion about how much we all love Savoy truffle.
So-
Yes.
Originally, when Marvin came to the song, I told him it's a holy hit. The original model I had in my head was I want to write a horn arrangement for it, which I do. So I wrote a horn arrangement, but I was thinking Mellow Yellow by Donovan. We had like a session where we had French horn, trombone, and saxophone. And after listening to it, we were like, we kept talking about Savoy Truffle. And we're like,
Right.
let's go that approach. So doing some research, we found out they used 3 tenors and 3 baritones. So that's what we did. We had 3 tenor sax. I revamped the arrangement a little bit, the horn arrangement.
Yeah.
We had 3 tenors and 3 baritones, and they killed it.
Yeah. So that was how it was trying to just fit the new record of it, you know what I
And
mean?
really loud tambourine.
You think it's too loud?
No, it's Marvin loud.
Everybody else is too loud.
Yes, it's Marvin loud.
No one ever mentions that voice.
Now you know. Now you know.
Himself.
'Cause you worked
Yeah,
with
I
them.
know.
Is it too loud, you think?
No, I know where it's coming from. It's coming from listening to the old Motown records. Where
Exactly.
in the left channel,
And
it's
there's-
all tambourine.
And it's all tambourine.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
a point of view loud.
Yeah.
It's meant to be there. It's pronounced.
Yeah.
Well, when we worked on the man, I said, when the tambourine comes in, it's got to feel like that's the lead instrument.
Well, it does.
I didn't say that was a good thing. I just said,
I'm just messing.
No,
with
it's
you.
totally right. But Reflections by the Supremes,
Mm-hmm.
where the tambourine it's almost like the lead instrument.
right.
We were like kind of going for like make it,
Yeah,
take it, have it take over in a way.
right. Yeah, the Motown's record did that. Like some of the Stones records did that. Like tambourine is too loud, and maracas are too loud, and so it was like imperfection of that. But I think if it was from the very top, then it would be a different thing. But like some of the Beatle records, it's the
Sometimes
last overdub.
Yeah.
The last overdub usually the loudest.
Yeah.
So we'll remix it if we have to.
You can hear a million compliments, but one negative thing.
It's really loud.
Taking that in context, not only of record making, but also in songwriting. I remember working on this a long time ago, and so I don't understand what that line means. I'm like, okay, this is not good.
Yeah.
This is not a good thing.
Yeah, and then
Right?
they forget about it when the record comes out,
Yeah,
and
well, I changed it.
Mm-hmm.
I changed it.
Was it a better change? you think?
Well, it's just it's like, oh, now I get what you're talking about. And it was like, oh, okay, well, it's poetically just as good, it's musically just as good, and I would keep that in mind. It's like the first time, like you guys remember, like the first time we played, I can see through my window now, I could feel the energy at the end of the song. It's like, wow, there's something happening. We definitely need to record this song, because it's like an energy that just happens,
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like it can go the other way, where someone might make a comment, you go, you should really change that, or it feels long, or
Mhm.
someone might make, and that's how I've learned. I've actually taken criticism, seriously or to heart, where it's like, well, if that's going to make it a better song. I'll give you an example. One time I worked with producer Jack Douglas, right? He's really a good song guy, like really a good song guy, right? And I had recorded a song, and I sent it to him, and he goes, I want to re-record it with you singing. I said, okay, so he put a band together, and there was actually a bass player there. He goes, I want Marvin to sing and play acoustic, and he's going to overdub bass, because he plays a certain way. I don't want it to sound too good. I said, okay. So before we cut the track, the whole band is there, and before we work on the band arrangement, he goes, read me the lyric. I said, okay, so I read him the lyric. He goes, take out verse 3. Okay, let's cut it. Whoa, I felt like someone just chopped off my arm and
Sure.
said, go play. I go,
Right.
what? And so I had the lyric in front of me, put a big X on that verse. I go, okay, he's producing, and here we go. And we cut it that way, we worked on the arrangement, and it was like, wow, he was right.
He's right, huh?
It's a better song, it's a better record,
I thought you were going to say the opposite. That was a mistake.
No, that's why I kind of set it up that
Wow.
way. It was like, so there are times that somebody can say something where it's like, okay, listen to that.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to know the difference. And if
Yes.
someone makes a comment,
Right.
it's like, hey, if we're working on the album and we've got all the tracks assembled, and seriously, if I felt like the whole album was done, I go, Willie, Louise was right. Let's do another mix with the tambourine down a little bit. Like, okay, let's do that. Now
Oh,
we'll set the mix.
You know, it's a subjective thing. The way people
Of
hear it.
course it is, you know,
Tom Petty,
but this is how I think that we grow as songwriters and record makers and also performers live, that we're listening,
yeah.
right? That if the only thing that you're concerned about is like, well, here it is, you know, it just came from above and here's the song. It's like, you know what, it's 6 minutes long and
Yeah, because you want it to come
I
in.
don't know, when I was working with Skylar Gudaz, you've worked with Skylar.
Yeah, sure.
One thing she said when we were working down there that she loved was that we were in a feedbackless space. She loved that it was just the two of us. I was plugging things in, recording. We were
Yeah.
just going really fast. There wasn't input or opinions coming in. We just wrote the song, went down to the studio, recorded the song
Yeah.
immediately, and she loved that it was a feedbackless
Yeah,
loop
I totally
that
get
we
that.
were in. And I love that. I love working that way too, because I'm always saying to myself, cut that verse.
Right. 'cause
I try
It's hard
not
to
to
be
cut my own
absolutely sure
verses
sometimes.
because I'll put the producer hat on and I'll cut myself.
Leonard Cohen gave me. Well, I did some production. I co-produced with him and his ex-girlfriend Anjani Thomas. We did a bunch of songs, about 5 or 6 songs for what I just found out might end up coming out in a couple of years.
with her
Yeah. I actually sang his parts. She called me Willie and Leonard, because I would imitate him, you know. Like, so, but he'd send, like, again, we're talking about 30 verses, and I would email him going, how do I, you know, he goes, I go, how am I to cut this down? He goes, I don't know how to.
Good luck.
Yeah, pretty much. He goes, I don't know
Pick
how to.
and choose.
Yeah.
Pick your favorite
So I
4
did.
verses.
You know.
It's interesting that Tom Petty said there are a couple times, he was like us, that he had a song, Rhino Skin, which I mentioned, and Rick Rubin heard it, and the whole band, they said, we like it, but there's this line about you have to have elephant balls if you don't want to crawl through the world. And everyone said, it's a good song, get the elephant balls out of the song. And Tom said, you know, I liked him, I thought it was a good line, but I tried. But I couldn't find anything better.
Yeah,
but he
right.
tried.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
also, you don't know how it feels to be me.
Ugh.
Rick Rubin said, that's not a good line. Everyone will think you're talking about yourself, and it's egotistical.
Yeah.
Rick didn't even think it should go on the album.
Wow.
But that Tom was like, yeah, it's going on. He was like, really? And it really kind of...
Right.
And then he said, I think they're going to think it's them.
Yeah,
That's
you
the
know,
idea.
there was.
That's my
I
favorite
don't know
record
if it
is
was
Wildflowers.
but
Wildflowers. It's great.
yeah, there's a story of Rick Rubin. He's working on Neil Diamond, and he hears Neil Diamond's playing him a bunch of new songs for the album. They're about to go into the studio, and the story was that Rick Rubin hears the songs. He goes, okay, I'm going to come back in 6 months. And then I want to hear some more songs.
Yeah.
And then if I
Yeah.
feel we have some songs for the record, I'll let you know. And Neil Diamond's like, yeah, but I'm Neil Diamond.
Yeah, right.
But he said, you know what? That's what I'm going to do every day. I'm just going to work on songs for 6 months, and then I'm going to be ready for this guy. And when he came back, it just really
upped
took
his
him-
game.
It really,
Oh, that worked, yeah.
It took it for him. It took him to the next level. So kind of like it's subjective. No one has the answers. You know, it's like that joke. How many producers does it take to screw in a light bulb? What do you think? So
Right.
you know that no one has one particular. You know, maybe except for George Martin, who might have never been wrong. You know, if I listen to his mixes and then I listen to the outtake right before
Or
it's
Jeff
like,
Emmerich.
you know,
I think George takes a lot of credit that Jeff deserves.
Yeah.
And
But-
so did Jeff felt that too.
Yeah.
But if you actually compare, like the mixes that didn't make the record, you go, oh, okay, and the note is bongo too hot, and the on Hard Day's Night or something, you know, or whatever.
Those are all those bounces that Jeff had.
Right.
You gotta get those bounces.
Right, so then you hear the master mix, then you
Yeah,
hear
yeah.
the mix that, okay, that was the one right before, but Martin said go with that. They were never wrong, you know what I mean? So that's a very unusual situation, you know, but in general, you know, it's something that I would listen to, you know, and it depends the stereo. You might listen to it on a pair of headphones, you might
Yeah.
listen to it in your car, you might listen, you know.
Yeah, I've had songs I wrote like 30 years ago, and like one guy who had a negative comment about the lyrics still kind of bothers me. You know, it
Yeah.
kind of tainted the song forever.
Yeah.
It can do that, but it's, you know, I find that stuff helpful. I really do.
Sometimes
You know.
it is helpful.
It's
It
just
can be
about, yeah.
constructive, it's not always
It can be, you know, because and there are times when when that little, I mean, I'm not talking about a hit record being a barometer of everything valuable, but there are some people who go, why don't you, if you tweak, some little thing, and that's actually like a thing that becomes.
Yeah, there's just certain, you know, comments. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's really good. You
Right.
know?
If someone says they don't understand a song, I don't feel it's.
Yeah, that's not your.
Their fault.
That's yeah.
I feel maybe I've done something wrong if it doesn't make sense. You know, I mean, not
Yeah,
that they're always going to be that
Yeah,
clear.
if
but
someone is specific
maybe it's
with
a
me,
failure as a writer.
yeah, if someone is specific with me, then I can understand it better. If they just kind of make a
Right.
generic, oh, I really like it, it's like, okay, well, I'm glad you like it. But if they're specific, it's like that one line, what were you talking about? Sometimes I'll go, all right, I'll take that to heart. Maybe I'll even try to go, you know, it's not better with the change.
Right.
So you kind of have to.
I was very surprised that he said cutting out a verse was so good. You know, that's something that
It
would.
was good.
Yeah.
It just it made a better song, made a better record. I didn't.
But Marvin will do that as a producer to other artists. You'll sometimes go, you know what?
You can be brutal. man.
Cut this verse, double the chorus at the end. You know, do these chord changes. I mean, everybody. You know, that's the beauty of songwriting and the beauty of record making is that it really is like, you know, like we always talk about how the 3 minute, essentially 3 to 4 minute format still provides like endless possibilities of how you can make it.
It's weird. It's just something that there's like an inner clock. You know, like I remember finishing a window.
Yeah,
Right before sending it to you, it was just like once I had those changes, it was just, that's it. Now I can send it to Willie. You know, and I felt it was just like it hit. There's like a peak. There's like a wind, a time clock. We go. That's it. The bell rings. It's like okay.
Yeah.
The movie is finished. The scene is finished. You know.
I think I'm better at sensing that. I think in the past mine have been too long, and I realized actually much shorter is more powerful. Yeah?
It can be.
It can
It
be.
certainly can be.
That rule unto itself. You could write a 2-minute song, doesn't mean it's great. You could write a
Right,
7-minute song, doesn't
absolutely.
mean it's bad. So,
You know, when I first came to town, I took a songwriting workshop with Jack Siegel, who wrote the lyrics like "When Sunny Gets Blue" and "Scarlet Ribbons," and I was like, you know, Dylan inspired. I'd come in with a 7-verse song and go, "Oh God, another novel from Zola." You know, anything more than 3 verses.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
right, right.
So you grew up in Chicago, right? So you probably were around like Prine and Steve Goodman and stuff
Steve
like
Goodman
that.
was a friend, and he gave me my first songwriting lesson. And
You
John
know-
Prine was they were our heroes, but I was the little kid with chutzpah who would go backstage at all those shows.
But we were like that too. We were like
Yeah.
But
we
when Prine and Goodman came out, I was still under the influence of Beatles and like beat bookends, Paul Simon, so
Right.
surrealistic kind of lyrics that made sense kind of if you looked into them, you
Yeah.
know. But not like a John Prine song. So I played a song for Steve Goodman after one of his shows. He let me even use his guitar. You know who that is? He was City of New Orleans. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, not everyone knows.
yeah.
And he goes, you know, Paul, it was really, that was a good song, but I could have done that whole song in 2 lines. Which was kind of brutal, but he was right. I realized there was maybe 2 lines of content. And from that day on, I thought, yeah, try to write a song that actually tells a story, makes sense. I mean, it was
Yeah.
a great thing for him
Right.
to say to me.
Yeah. Being an artist in 2020, 2025 is really hard because there are no gatekeepers.
Why is that hard?
Because it's hard to be free.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a
Okay,
song
so like
title,
you were
too.
saying,
Hard to be
there's
free,
nobody
yeah.
telling you what to do. So an artist, in a way, has a very childlike predisposition.
Right.
There's something childlike about an artist, even though they're in an adult body.
Okay.
Right.
So you're saying it's hard because it's hard to be free, but let's say the truth here, which is that it really isn't hard. I mean, it is hard psychologically to be free,
Whatever
but really
way you
you've
say
been
it.
untied from the tether that you were on.
Well, no one's telling you that if you do this and you sign here, I'm going to open the door for you, says someone behind the desk, and this will happen for you. And that happened for a lot of people. Sometimes the promises
Until
were
it
made,
didn't.
and sometimes the promises were not kept. Okay? But now that's happening less and less. So now there's an entire generation of record makers that are kind of on their own.
Right. You know, the part
It's,
that
it's
isn't-
like a free fall right now, and which is good and bad because there's so many
That's
that
right.
the fact that there aren't gatekeepers, I'm not suggesting there should be, but anybody could put out a record.
Right.
And everybody's a songwriter,
And as-
everybody's a...
I'm going to be Mr. Glass half full for a second here. Okay. So the flip side of all of the sobering stuff that you guys have been talking about, I'm going to offer the other part to it. Now, think about this for a second. There were records that people put out 30, 40, 50 years ago. They invested every bit of heart and soul that they could muster and craft and skill. They put out a record, it dies on the vine. Nobody knows what it is. I can name you off the top of my head 5 to 10 dozen records like that. Because of people who are music fanatics now, who grew up loving music, who are now in positions of being able to reissue those records, there's now a group of people. When I first met you, Paul, you don't remember this, but you were doing a book signing for the first volume of Songwriters on Songwriting. And what drew me to that book was, this was in the 90s, right, when it first came out?
Yeah.
I was such a big fan of Harry Nilsson, and I'd met him, some years prior at a Beatle convention, and met him a few times in a row, and I was such a fan of his. And I go, oh my God, this guy actually writes about Harry Nilsson. He interviews him, That's what compelled me to go see your in-store thing. Nobody I knew, except for a few people, loved Harry Nilsson. They didn't even know who he was. Now he's in movies. He's in television. People.
John Lennon's Lost Weekend.
Right. Yes.
Midnight Cowboy.
Right. But I'm saying that if the work will hopefully outlive us all.
Right.
And the work is a really important thing. And some things just come around again. There's records like in the early 70s. There was like all this stuff like Grand Funk Railroad. Savoy Brown, records that were, huge, sold hundreds and millions of copies, bands that are completely forgotten now. Mm-hmm. There were other people like Big Star, Velvet Underground, Harry Nilsson, Nilsson was a fairly successful artist, but he never toured.
Right, he
right?
performed live.
Right? There were generations of people that didn't know what this music was until some person said, I'm going to put this record out, I'm going to show the world that there's value to this work. Yeah. And so now it's almost like we've almost had a correction, mm-hmm. An artistic correction, that things that were great, that were like Nick Drake, mm-hmm. It took that Volkswagen commercial.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully people won't be dead by
right.
the time they get appreciated.
I guess what I'm saying is,
yeah.
to dovetail back to your point about why even do an album, because what else are we going to do?
Right.
Well, I'm not.
If you're an author, you're going to write.
I'm not saying why do an album.
But,
I mean.
No. But yeah. I'm sort of supporting what you're saying. Like, the purpose is, we have no choice other than he calls me up with with a song. Yeah, I'm going to play this song for you over the phone, or I'm going to email you this song.
Right.
And I either respond to it, go, that's a really good song. I don't think it's a Holy Brothers song. We're very we've had the decades of friendship that we've had and sustained has allowed us to absolutely cut through any veneer of we're not
polite.
Well, we have respect for each other, but it's not like if I'll go, I have no fear in going, that's not a Holy Brothers song.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he'll go, great. And he doesn't take it personally. He doesn't get offended by it. He just goes, okay, I'll write another one.
Thick skin if you're a songwriter.
Oh, that's for sure.
But you know what I want to say? The difference, when you said it makes it harder, it's true. But there's no rule. But no one told you guys you had to make that album that well, and no one tells you have to make the song that well. So what distinguishes, I think, the thing is, number one, years of artistry that you developed.
Right.
I think there's a feeling that nowadays it's like, I'm going to write a song and do this track, but to be a great songwriter, like your mother said many times, and your father, it took years of writing songs to really learn how to do it beautifully. And that's so clear when you hear your songs that whoever's writing this knows how to write a
I
song.
appreciate
And
that.
then the production has that as well. So
Thank you.
to me, it doesn't sound childlike in any way, but I know what you mean.
Well,
You're aimless.
when I say childlike, I just meant in terms of there's a sense of innocence that if you really want to be an artist and continue this, you know, you've got to be willing to take a complete chance with your life
Yeah.
and do this. It's not like it's not a casual statement,
Right.
you know. So if you want to do it, okay. If you don't have, you know, sometimes I tell people, if you don't have to do this,
Right.
don't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
People have said to me, you know, Paul, what a normal person would do in this situation.
Right.
Right.
Not a musician.
I remember being a kid, going on the Venice boardwalk and watching street singers. And I swear to God, I remember kind of like, you know, thinking to myself, this is what I'll do. If I need to be a street singer, I'm going to be a musician. And my parents, who were, you know, Holocaust survivors and who were very like success oriented, and my father survived Auschwitz, and he wanted me to be a doctor. You know, that was like their primary, you know, the typical archetypal Jewish.
Be a doctor, be a lawyer.
Exactly. My brother is a lawyer.
Not a classmate musician.
Exactly right. That is exactly what my dad and my mom, they were like, why are you throwing your life away doing this? Why are you purposely choosing difficulty? Like, yeah, I totally get it. And I understand that impulse. And as a parent now, I think every one of us has children in this room.
Yeah.
We have that thing where, like, I used to really resent it, going, who in the hell is he to tell me, like, not to pursue my dream, right? You know, but now you think about it going, I totally understand. You know, he would say to me, you know, I survived Auschwitz. I didn't have the luxury of choosing a passion. You know, that was like an indulgence.
I get it. I get it. It's a generational thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a generational thing, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I made that sort of contract with myself on that day on the Venice boardwalk, watching a couple of street musicians I'm going, if that's what I have to do to be a musician, I'm going to do it.
And then and that's when the parent comes in and says, but when you run out of money, don't come to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the
Consider a
next thing.
fallback.
I mean, I did other things, you know, but I always kind of knew in the back of my mind, and then this is very, you know, also in the front of my mind, that I was going to be a musician no matter what it took.
I get that.
You know, that
And
brings
maybe
me
coming
to
into Aaron's, you know.
a question I wanted to ask you too related. Another part of it, what you guys do that distinguishes you and good artists, is that you have an ambition in songwriting, that you're going to write a new song. I hear like Elvis in Jerusalem. No one has ever written that song.
Uh-huh.
And it says it's about celebrity, it's about religion, it's
Right.
about humanity.
Yeah.
So my question is, you know, what brings you to that kind of song? And do you think songs will always have a new place to go? You know, because when we were growing up, suddenly the Beatles went to Strawberry Fields, and it seemed like songs are just going to go forever like that.
Always nice when you mentioning one of my songs, but
Well,
sorry.
You hear.
If you're going to lower the bar and mention those guys. Yeah, I mean, in terms of that song specifically, it actually came from a book title, and I was co-writing with David Swirsky, who's in a band called Moshav. So we got together and we worked on 2 songs in a couple of days. He had a riff they played on guitar. He just kept playing this riff. It was 2 notes. And then I started writing lyrics, and then we started building the song, you know, just around, you know, where I just kept going into this whole thing. So it wasn't really till after the song that I realized kind of what it was about.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like have this idea of what the song was about at all. In fact, I didn't even read the book. You know, but it was later. I go, and then when I played it for Willie, he goes, oh, we got to record that song. You know, he realized the specialness of it. I didn't see the specialness of it.
I mean,
You know.
to me, it's about how, like John Lennon said, people with, you know, songs were reaching our lives in such a powerful way that they became more important than Christ or a religious figure, that they became a religious figure. And
Yeah,
certainly
I mean-
Elvis has become that to a lot of people, like a religious icon.
Right.
Was that what you were writing about, or is that not?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't conscious writing. I didn't have a storyline ahead of time. It wasn't like looking at it from a movie script point of view, it just was a natural way for me to get through how to. These words sounded really good when he was playing that music, and I just kind of kept going. And I had been to Israel, I visited the Holy Wall, and I had these experiences, and it was kind of connecting that, like a celebrity with, with a sense of celebrity and spirituality kind of come together in that song. But I didn't mean it to. It was really kind of, there was kind of a sense of innocence when I wrote the song. I didn't really know what I was writing about. I was just writing it.
It's so beautiful about songwriting, like what Leonard was saying too, that you're married to a mystery, that you're writing something. You're following the song really more than you're leading.
Yeah, that's right. He used to. I'd ask him. I'd go, when he'd be working on stuff for his, then new record. I'd go, how's it going? And he'd go, still scratching away. Yeah. Like he saw himself as like a guy who just like Marvin said, he would etch at it, and that's why like the multitude of verses, until he came up with, until it was finished.
I'm not saying that's a bad way of doing it, but
it's insane. But
it's insane.
I don't know if it's insane. It's kind of
the
like
madness of a great artist.
Well, there's some bands that will do multiple takes. There are other artists. It's like, okay, we're going to catch fire in early takes. It's like there's no really rule or road.
Yeah, everybody's
different.
Doing.
But his discards would be brilliant. I mean, he shared some with me that the verses that he would write and then cut out are the kind of verses you'd be lucky to get.
Totally right.
Well, I mean, he could have had every song is like Sad-Eyed Lady with the Lowland. He could have had every song that lasts an entire song if he wanted to. I think he was really accommodating the song format.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely. If I never asked him this, but if I could, I'd say, could we just make a record with 2 songs, side 1, side 2? That's if I could ask him that question, that would be the record I'd want to make with him right now. That you have enough verses. Don't compromise. They're all really good. All right, we'll cut it from 60 to 45 verses. You know what I mean?
Well, I asked him about certain, like, why would you cut that out? And it wasn't that it was too long. It's like, it's just the wrong attitude. I don't want there to be a war between minds. It should be between hearts. He was thinking in all those terms.
That's right.
Yeah, he saw things as in a moral framework.
He was a poet, so he was writing poetry.
Yeah, but to be sung, it is different. I mean,
I understand that, but if Bob Dylan never got signed, and Columbia Records never signed him, I think he would have just continued writing poetry books. Maybe. Like if there was no musical movement to accommodate him, right? Because when he started, there wasn't.
Right. I mean, there was a folk thing.
Right, I understand that, but let's say he never, if he didn't latch on to that, the Dylan thing kind of cracked open and kicked open.
Ginsberg said when Dylan came, he blew everyone's mind except Leonard Cohen.
Right.
Like Leonard kind of was on his own track in some ways already.
Yeah.
Right, but the idea that he's one of the few writers that you could, that he could make an entire song to last the side of an album.
Well, you knew him. Why do you think he wouldn't do that?
Why do you think he wouldn't do that?
Why not?
I think, like Marvin said earlier, he wasn't as in love with the formal discipline of making music. The music always served the intent behind the lyric. So I think, and I think he also, the way he wrote music, actually, but just the lyrics aside, he had a very economical approach, harmonically. Not simplistic, but simple, I think that was to his advantage. He always used to joke about, other guitar players have chops. I have the one chop, right?
But it's a good chop.
But it's a good chop, right. But he used that limitation to his advantage in terms of how he wrote music. I think, yes, he had the background in poetry and in being a book writer and writing in long form as well. But ultimately, he used to listen to the radio in the 50s, in the 40s and 50s. He loved country music. He loved the simplicity of, he heard Hank Williams on the radio, Yeah. So I think he had reverence for the format.
Yeah, in Tower of Song, he names Hank Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the guy.
Yeah.
He's on the top floor.
Yeah.
You can't.
For you too, in your tower?
Absolutely.
I have this box set I've had for I don't know, 35 plus years, there's got like 20 albums in it from Japan.
Economy, there's a lot of economy because of the absolute economy and
That's right.
simplicity in the lyric.
Yeah.
And that tells us, keeps moving the story forward.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. Never
Right.
wrote a bad song. Every title, every song he's very title driven, cold heart, very hook driven,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But it didn't sound. It really, for someone who wrote about someone else's cold heart, he wrote from the heart. It was very heartfelt.
Yeah. It
You
was
know,
pure.
lyric. He lived a heartfelt life.
Yeah.
You know, to the bitter end. And it didn't, there are sometimes you hear a, quote, pop song, and you kind of see through it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of put your finger through it and go, oh, I know what that's made of. With Hank Williams, you can't see through it. It's so deep and rich.
Right.
You know, it's like a color of the sky that only happens at that moment and only you get to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and as time passes, you can listen to Hank Williams when you're 8 years old and sing along.
And some people, you know, we're talking about Jay-Z and how that's shifted songwriting. So do you feel like songs are always going to matter? I mean,
I do.
melodies have
I
always
do.
been people.
I do.
It's like the sun always mattering.
Yes.
It's so. I don't know why this is. I don't know why this is. But if you get 2 people in a room, 4 people, 10 people, 1,000 people in a room, and you play a song, and it ends at the right moment, and there's this feeling of, oh my God, what a great song. I don't know why that is. It's something like the human clock within us.
Yeah,
Understands
it's a collective,
the
because it's all
connection.
about feelings.
That's the magic of song, because you're getting this message with language, you know, to our minds, but we're also getting music, you know, which
Right.
goes right to the emotion.
It
Those
goes
two
right
things
to the
to
emotion.
your heart and mind at
Yeah.
the same time
Yeah.
in such a short, basic way. It's powerful.
Yeah.
If it's done well.
I'm going to say 2 things. One, it still fascinates me that the 2-minute, 2.5, 3-minute format. It's not that this is just, we're talking about mostly American songwriters or British songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
There's songwriters around the world, and whether it's Marley or whether it's, you know, Aznavour or
Right.
Brel,
Jacques
you
Brel.
know, you know, my hero.
Me too.
Yeah,
You know.
Caetano Veloso, Gilberto Gil from Brazil.
Right.
Or,
Yeah, you know, they're interchangeable. You know, it's like they could have all sang each other's songs. You know, but let me share one other story that relates to what you were talking about. There's this organization called Guitar Jail Doors,
Mm-hmm.
and you teach songwriting to jail inmates.
Mm-hmm.
So I was brought into that.
That's Wayne Kramer's thing,
Wayne
right?
Kramer from MC5.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
anyway, he said, yeah, I like your songs, I'd like you to do this. And so I went, and I have a group of inmates, about 5 or 6 guys. It was such a week after week. I go one day per week, I go in, and I'd start off, so why are you here? What's going on? And one guy said, well, you know, I stole money from my mom in order to get crack. This other guy, I'd actually just heard about him on the radio. He actually had went into a famous actress's home and accosted her because he was a fanatic. Story on and on and on. Each one had, it was like eye-opening stories. Like, whoa. And I said, look, here's what I need all of you to do. Are you allowed to, each of you, have a notebook? Well, yeah, then we can do that. Can you each get a pen? Okay. What I want you to do when you wake up is just write something. I don't care if it's a word, a thought, an idea, something. And then when you go to sleep, do the same thing. Well, the guy who was in jail for crack, the next week, his notebook was filled with lyrics, right? And at the end of the session, we were supposed to come up with a song, right? And he said, I just want you to know, I called up my mom and told her I was writing, and she started to cry. Like she didn't know that he was even capable. He didn't know he was capable of writing. And I picked up a pen. I said, look, I want you to write something right now as if you're on the outside, as if you're in a really nice coffee shop, and understand what it means to be free. Because this pen can set you free. And they said, if you're standing outside, you're in your car, and there's a girl inside the house, she's a famous actress, and you're about to go inside her house and tell her how much you like her, you could sit in your car and just write that on a notebook pad. A cop will never knock on your glass window and go, hey, what are you writing? It'll never happen. And then when you're done writing, you don't have to go to her. You could just like seal the letter, and hopefully she hears it another way. You drive away and you'll be free. Freedom is the name of the game. Because we were talking earlier about it's hard being free, but it's even harder being in jail. That is not a place you want to be. This is not our society is very highly evolved. Some of the most technologically advanced things going on that are beyond comprehension, you know, really to human beings 25 years ago, where we are now, right?
Sure.
But when I sat in that jail and I see people fighting with each other, you know, and this is really a very, very hard life. But I saw their spirits being lifted, because at the end of the day, at the end of the night, they say, okay, we'll use that's a really good verse, and that's a really good idea, we'll use that here. We put a song together, and then a couple of the guys sang it, and all of a sudden, I could see their life was changed. Their life was being changed in that moment. And the security guys were going, hey man, this is really cool. You know, the head of the jail, they actually had a ceremony, you know, and it was so powerful, you know, but it was very heavy. You know, it's not like going to a local club and people are banging out a song. It's like, okay, all right, great. These guys were like, they were holding on for dear life, you know, to experience this. And when I would leave at the end of the night, you know, one of the guys, you know, go, you're going to be here next week, right? I said, well, of course, I'm going to be here for it. I'll be here for next Wednesday night, whatever night it was, you know. But the whole idea of writing and song and the power of communication, that it can change one's life and can save your life. That's what all this is about. This whole thing about who's listening to the record and who's buying, it's like, you know what, I gotta tell you, yeah, I should know that answer. I kind of don't. But if I don't do this, I don't know where I'm gonna be. And that's not, I don't have a good answer for it. But if I don't write songs, I'm not gonna last maybe a week, 2 weeks. Whoa, I mean, that would be a very long time for me to not do, I mean, really a week.
That story shows us how lucky you are to be a songwriter. You already knew that. When these people, you know, realizing that
But
what
it
it could do to
reinforced
them.
something,
Yeah.
and it made me experience something on a deeper level that I hadn't experienced before.
To have more gratitude for
Yes.
the gift and the ability and the freedom to do it. Yeah.
Freedom is hard, being in jail is hard. Stay out of jail and think like you're a free person and you're going to get out of here.
And
And when
also
you're
that-
out of here,
You were telling me, trust, you know, those voices that you hear,
Yes.
those lines, trust that, put it down, it's valid, it's
That's
coming
right.
from you.
and that's
Songwriters are good at that, you write it down and then you think about it.
ultimately that's what it about. That's what it is about.
Mhm.
That if you're doing this because you're supposed to do this, or there's some kind of carrot dangling, and someone's making you some false promise that you're going to be, you know, on TV, or someone's going to put you on late night TV, or something, some promise. If you do it my way, it's going to go this way. You got to do it because you have to do it.
Yeah, it's a
Because you're going to
calling,
die if you don't do it. And if that's not the reason you're doing it, don't do it.
You know,
Yeah.
it's very close to what your mom said. She said it's really about the doing. If you're not
Yes.
appreciating the doing, regardless of what happens. And she said, you know, if I were doing it now, like Louisa, she said, I don't know if I'd even be a songwriter professionally. I would write songs because I
Yeah.
love it. Maybe have another job. A technical question about how you get your sound. Are your harmony parts like normal parts, or are there certain intervals that create that sound?
Willie is one of the great harmony singers, one of the great singers I've ever worked with. I mean,
Yeah.
he can
It's
plug
hard to
in.
figure out what
He
you're
can
doing.
plug into a harmony. It's like like nobody else. Like nobody else.
I can do
And,
that.
Yeah, I was kind of hearing this harmony. Go, oh, that was good. I'll try it. I get really excited. I go, wow, you like my harmony idea? That's, you know.
It's never
I've
I've
just-
to a third above or that.
No,
kind of
I mean that's
And sometimes we'll switch it. Sometimes there's unison.
yeah, that's
stuff
right.
Going on.
That's right.
Because a lot, you know, like the Everly, John and Paul stuff, or
Mhm.
you know,
Simon and
Lutherans, or
Garfunkel.
Simon and
Also,
Garfunkel.
I can tell you another
Yeah.
one for me. David Crosby, also in the Byrds. Not so much. I mean, I like Crosby, Stills, Nash fine, but in the Byrds, he kind of like would do very kind of unusual
Yeah.
intervals in the
It's-
harmony
yes,
part.
So he sings the middle part.
Yeah.
Which
So
on its own would sound really strange, right?
yeah, so I
Really
think
good.
he's definitely somebody that I emulated. I think as a kid when I was listening to Byrds records and.
And you could tell his part. You heard.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
definitely.
Me, I like the Kings. You know, it's octaves. So, you
Yeah,
know.
we could probably just talk to you guys every week, and we'd have enough to go on. There's a lot.
I swear this has been so great. You know, you guys ask really good questions. You're both supremely intelligent, and so
Some people you ask these questions, they go, I just don't think about that kind of stuff. I just do it. But
Oh, it's a K.
Oh yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, this
With
is Elvis in.
flatwound.
Elvis in Jerusalem. Yeah.
Oh,
Flatwound.
beautiful.
Check it out.
What is that?
Flatwound?
Well,
You mean nylon?
man,
No,
that's some
flats.
pretty grimy stuff going
Oh,
on
yeah.
between the frets.
Yeah, that's
Are you
how-
afraid to clean them?
Or is it?
Yeah. Yeah, oh, this is the clean version of it. Took it to the guitar shop. I said, yeah, put strings on it. And I said, I'm only going to ask one thing from you. One thing. He goes, what's that? I said, do not clean the neck. So then I come back and I said, the neck is all clean. He goes,
Ah.
well, I thought that's what you wanted.
Ah.
He saw how upset I was. He goes, I'm not going to charge you. Just get out.
No, I want my grime back.
So you built the grime up again,
Yeah.
obviously.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I heard that Tom Waits came in McKee's and said, "Do you have old guitar strings?"
That's right.
And they said, "We don't sell old ones." And
Yeah.
they said, "He said, well, can you get me some?" And
Yeah.
they did, but they didn't charge him. So we're not going to charge.
Yeah,
him.
right.
That's what he wanted.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, when I got the mandola, he goes, yeah, we can set it. Don't touch it, I said. Leave the strings. Yeah. I think Klaus Forman still has
I was just
the
about
bass
to say.
strings. Yeah,
Klaus
he
Forman
really?
has not changed his bass string since 1969.
yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Does that create a better sound by doing that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't change your strings ever.
Get to Elvis.
Are you waiting for something to change? So am I. So am I. Are you waiting for someone in vain? So am I. So am I. Bright lights in the promised land. Under a broken sky. I just wanna shake his hand. If I do, I know I'll cry. Elvis in Jerusalem. Elvis in Jerusalem. Elvis in Jerusalem. Yeah, yeah. Are you in by the broken wall? So am I. So am I. Are you waiting for the king to call? So am I. So am I. I just wanna see him smile, just like a little boy. Walk a hallelujah mile, just to hear his voice. Elvis in Jerusalem. Elvis in Jerusalem. Elvis in Jerusalem. Yeah, yeah. Between the stones, place your prayer. Out of the blue, out of thin air. This is home, this is where.
malfunction at the end there.
There you go.
I love that.
That's killer.
So great.
What
Well,
a
thank
great
you
song.
both for coming.
Thank you
Oh,
so
yeah.
All
much.
that.
Once upon a time, you used to be mine. Birds and bees and apples and trees, the world's a perfect design. Do it all so well, and you know it. Let your light shine, and know you show it. Mercy, joy, and success.